Riley Bennett pushed open the glass doors of the corporate headquarters, the soft whoosh barely audible over the low hum of early morning activity. Her blouse, once crisp, had become slightly rumpled during the hurried commute through a sudden morning shower, droplets still clinging faintly to the strands of her dark hair. Despite her modest business casual attire, there was an unspoken tension in the air as polished employees glanced her way. Some eyes flickered with curiosity, others with subtle judgment, measuring her unassuming appearance against the high standards of the sleek office. She paused for a moment near the reception, steadied her breath, and moved forward, clutching a small leather bag that held little more than essentials and her quiet resolve. The walls shimmered with glass and steel, emphasizing the professionalism expected here. It was a world apart from the sweat and rain of the streets she'd just left behind. Leo, the office lead known for his sharp tongue and effortless arrogance, spotted Riley immediately. His gaze narrowed, and he let out an audible sigh, shaking his head with a faint smirk. To him, this was just another assistant who hadn't figured out the unwritten rules yet. Lips curling in a barely concealed sneer, he called across the room, "Hey, assistant, could you grab that file from the supply closet? We wouldn't want you to lose your touch on day one." His voice dripped with sarcasm as he added, "And maybe tidy up while you're at it. This place has standards." The crowd nearby chuckled quietly, and all eyes turned to Riley, waiting for her reaction. She met Leo's gaze briefly, her expression calm and unreadable, then gave a slight nod. Right away, she replied softly, and began to walk away, unhurried and composed. Riley's footsteps carried her past the supply closet without hesitation. She felt the weight of the room's stairs but kept her pace steady, her mind focused. There was no argument, no overt correction. Leo's misunderstanding was clear, but Riley chose silence, an ambiguous, polite acceptance instead. "Right away," she had said. The corners of her mouth barely twitched, betraying no sense of offense or urgency in refusing the task. She simply wasn't going to fetch a file or straighten up the clutter. Instead, she veered toward the HR office. The hallway stretched bright and open, decorated with abstract art and soft, natural light pouring through floor-to-ceiling windows. The smooth tiles beneath her shoes reflected the steady rhythm of her steps, and though some deputies and clerks glanced her way, Riley ignored the curiosity. Her calm demeanor seemed to deflate the gossip prematurely. She was no assistant running errands, she was here on a mission far beyond Leo's assumptions. At the HR office, Linda Lang, the HR manager, looked up from her computer screen as Riley approached. Linda's face lit with a warm, welcoming smile, a sharp contrast to the chilly suspicion Riley had sensed moments before in the main office. "Riley," she said with sincere delight, "we're glad you made it. We've been expecting you." Riley returned the smile briefly, setting her bag on the sleek counter. "Thank you, Linda. Yes, I wanted to check in before the day really kicks off." Linda pushed some papers aside and gestured toward a plush chair. "Please, have a seat. We've already informed the executive team. Everyone is eager to officially welcome the new Vice President of Operations." The title rolled off Riley's tongue as smoothly and naturally as if she wore it every day. There was no grand announcement here, no need for theatrics when the title carried its own weight. "I appreciate the warm welcome," she said softly, her eyes reflecting the faint light that filtered through the blinds. "I wanted to keep the morning simple, focus on the essentials first." Linda nodded knowingly. "And your attire?" Riley glanced down at her neatly pressed trousers and modest blouse, which now looked more practical than polished under the office's bright lighting. "I came straight from a volunteer event this morning. Sometimes you have to keep things simple to get a real sense of the day ahead." Linda smiled. "That speaks volumes about your approach." Meanwhile, in the main area, Leo had done exactly what he intended. He cornered a small group of employees near the coffee station. His voice lowered to a conspiratorial stage whisper as he leaned close, a smirk curling his lips. "You all saw that?" Told her to start with a menial task, and she accepted it like a good little assistant. "I bet she's still fetching files for the big bosses, clueless as ever." His joke earned a few uncomfortable chuckles, eyes darting toward the corridor Riley had exited. The atmosphere was light, but beneath Leo's bragging, a thread of uncertainty had begun to sow itself. Who exactly was this supposed assistant? Rising to greet Leo's dismissiveness, a few exchanged knowing glances, some skeptical, others curious. Back in HR, Riley focused on the documents before her, reviewing initial reports and performance summaries with Linda. The HR manager's respect for Riley was apparent, not only in tone but in the attentive way she seemed to treat every word as valuable. The office outside felt distant. Here was a quiet place of preparation and welcome, far removed from the sarcastic jabs she had just left behind. After a brief conversation about upcoming projects, team structures, and ongoing operational challenges, Linda stood and offered a supportive hand. "We're ready for your introduction to the team this morning. They'll want to hear from you directly." Riley straightened her back, smoothing the front of her blouse with her hands. The quiet confidence with which she moved through these early moments was both practical and strategic. She did not rush, but she moved deliberately, aware that every subtle gesture echoed louder than words. From the edge of the hall outside, the conference room doors eventually opened, and employees began to trickle into their usual seats, murmuring with the buzz of typical office life. Still, the highest levels of the company were on alert, waiting for the moment when the new vice president would officially step into the spotlight. For Leo, buoyed by his self-assured victory, the morning seemed to run like clockwork. Still chuckling, he marshaled a few colleagues for what he called an early briefing on how they might maintain office discipline with the new hire firmly kept in check. His tone held all the confidence of a man who believed himself untouchable. Yet beneath the smiles and jokes, a subtle shift was beginning. Riley's quiet refusal to engage with his condescension, coupled with her poised demeanor and clear connection with HR leadership, planted a seed of doubt in the minds of others. The office was a place where reputation mattered, and her dignified restraint was already raising questions about who she truly was. As the clock ticked toward the scheduled meeting time, Riley left the HR office and walked calmly through the corridor toward the conference room. Her every movement held no trace of hesitation. Instead, there was a sense of purpose guiding her steps, a silent declaration that her role here was deeper and more commanding than any first impression suggested. The employees gathered in the conference room shifted their conversations to muted whispers, glancing toward the door through which she would soon enter. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, whether from curiosity, skepticism, or excitement. No one had voiced it aloud yet. Behind closed office doors, Leo paused briefly, apparently sensing something amiss. His earlier self-assurance flickered as he scanned the halls silently, catching a glimpse of Riley's composed figure. But he quickly masked it with a scoff and turned back toward his small group, choosing pride over inquiry. Riley's arrival was not yet publicly noted, but the quiet hum of expectancy had grown perceptible in the space between conversations. The polite exchanges faded with the echo of idle chatter as all waited. The moment when the truth would emerge was almost upon them. Hours earlier, Riley had stepped in without a grand proclamation, her appearance unremarkable to the untrained eye. Yet the simple way she handled the small slight, the calm procession through the office's internal channels, and the warmth of her private greeting confirmed one truth: she was far more than Leo's underestimated assistant. When she finally stood before the gathered team, ready to take her place as Vice President of Operations, the groundwork was in place. Respect and authority would not depend on appearances, they would be earned through presence and capability. The office, poised on the edge of transformation, waited for Riley's moment to claim her rightful place. The conference room filled steadily with murmurs and shifting chairs as employees settled into their usual seats. The walls, lined with sleek whiteboards and glass surfaces, reflected the morning light streaming in from tall windows. At the center, a long polished table dominated the space, surrounded now by a gathering of managers, team leads, and assorted staff members attending what they believed to be a routine team meeting. Leo leaned back in one of the leather chairs near the back, still wearing a smirk that carried remnants of his earlier triumph. He exchanged quiet jokes with a few trusted colleagues, relishing the moment before what he assumed would be the new assistant moving up the ladder had to prove herself. The room's atmosphere was casual, light, underpinned by the faint buzz of office small talk. Suddenly, the doors at the far end of the room swung open, drawing every eye. Riley Bennett stepped in, calm and assured, her posture straight as she moved towards the head of the table. Her business casual outfit was no longer just practical, it projected quiet authority, understated but unmistakable. The subtle confidence in her stride turned heads, more than just her presence, it was the purposeful way she carried herself that captivated the room instantly. At that moment, the HR manager Linda spoke, her voice clear and steady. "Good morning, everyone. Before we begin, I have the honor of officially introducing the new Vice President of Operations, Ms. Riley Bennett." A ripple of whispers passed through the gathered employees. Some faces displayed surprise, others tightened in realization. Leo's smirk faltered noticeably, his eyes narrowing as he scanned Riley's composed figure seated at the head of the table. His jaw clenched instinctively, disbelief flickering across his face as he registered the truth far more publicly than he had expected. Unsure but unwilling to expose his discomfort, Leo shifted in his chair awkwardly, attempting to mask the sudden unease that settled over him. His casual bravado was replaced by a constrained stillness, a tension grew in the space. Riley cleared her throat softly, looking directly into the group. "Thank you, Linda. I'm honored to join this team and look forward to working with each of you." Her voice was confident without a trace of arrogance, calm but full of steady purpose. The room grew quiet, the faint background noise of rattling laptops and shifting papers stilled. Eyes locked onto her. From Leo's vantage point, it was clear this was no ordinary day. He felt every eye shift from amusement to keen scrutiny, many now silent as respect began replacing the earlier dismissiveness. For a moment, his carefully constructed facade unraveled, his thoughts racing on how he would recover from what now felt like a very public humiliation. Riley continued, "I understand this company has a proud tradition of excellence and innovation. My goal is to build on that foundation, ensuring we remain competitive and collaborative as markets evolve." Her tone conveyed vision, experience, and genuine belief in the company's potential, a sharp contrast to the snide remarks she had received just an hour earlier. The employees listened, some nodding, others exchanging quick, thoughtful glances. Leo's mind flickered back to the small group he had gathered near the coffee station. The smugness in his voice, the dismissive way he had handed out supposed, menial, tasks, now felt like a misjudgment he might be forced to confront head-on. Yet, stubborn pride refused to let him show vulnerability publicly. The room's subtle shift from light-hearted chatter to focused attention was unmistakable. It was as if Riley's presence rewrote the rules of engagement. People who had barely noticed her hours earlier now regarded her as their direct superior. Linda cleared her throat, stepping to the side. "I'll leave you now to get acquainted. There will be time for questions in smaller meetings throughout the week." "Riley, welcome aboard again." Riley nodded politely. "Thank you, Linda. I look forward to meeting everyone personally in the coming days." With that, Linda retreated, leaving Riley at the front of the room, surrounded by a company that had just been reminded how leadership often reveals itself in unexpected ways. Leo slowly stood, feeling the eyes on him, uncertain where he fit now in this evolving landscape. He hesitated for a moment, then offered a forced smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. A voice inside urged him to speak, to reassert himself, but the words caught somewhere between pride and embarrassment. Instead, he took a step back and exited quietly, leaving the room filled with the palpable sense of change. Behind him, whispers began again, but now tinged with curiosity and tentative respect. The office had witnessed a moment that would not soon be forgotten, the unveiling of a leader who had chosen humility first, letting her capabilities speak louder than appearances. For Riley, the moment was less about triumph and more about a promise. The promise to lead with clarity, fairness, and strength, undistracted by superficial judgments. She seated herself fully in her new role, eyes meeting those in the front rows, inviting a silent commitment to work cohesively toward shared goals. In the quiet aftermath, the staff exchanged looks, realizing the hierarchy had shifted. What began as simple skepticism had transformed into acknowledgement. Sometimes the quietest entrances made the biggest impact. Riley sat poised at the head of the conference table, the polished surface reflecting the soft glow of the morning light. The room's tension hadn't fully eased, but the walls seemed to absorb the quiet authority she radiated. The senior executive who had been introduced alongside her, David Manning, a veteran of the company and one of the directors, stepped forward to speak, his voice carrying the weight of years spent navigating corporate corridors. "Ladies and gentlemen," David began, "I want to take a moment to emphasize the depth of experience Riley Bennett brings to this role as Vice President of Operations. Over the course of her decade-long career, she has led major multinational teams, launching successful projects that have transformed operations and significantly increased profit margins. Notably, she spearheaded the turnaround of a faltering division at her previous employer, boosting productivity by over 40% in less than 2 years." His gaze swept the room, commanding attention. Her awards, including the prestigious Industry Leadership Award and recognition for innovative operational strategies, reflect her commitment not just to numbers but to people, the teams she has led. David's words resonated in the room, dispelling lingering doubts. Riley's credentials were not merely impressive on paper, they translated into real-world successes that would now benefit their company. Riley nodded in acknowledgement and then addressed the room herself, her tone professional but inviting. "I believe that leadership starts with humility and listening. When I join a new team, I observe carefully, not just workflows and meetings, but how people interact when they think no one's watching. It's often in those moments you learn the true culture of a group." She paused briefly, eyes scanning the faces arrayed before her. "Today, I understand I came in wearing simple attire. That was intentional. I came straight from a community volunteer event this morning. Dressing with practicality allowed me to focus on what matters, understanding our people, our priorities, and our challenges." A murmur of approval rippled through the room, softer than applause but meaningful. "I want to make clear that my role here is to support each of you in your work and to make sure we move forward as one team. That means fairness, open communication, and mutual respect. Judgments based on appearances will not be tolerated here. Instead, I expect us all to be measured by our contributions, professionalism, and integrity." Her words held firm conviction but carried warmth that invited connection rather than command. The atmosphere shifted palpably. The earlier undercurrent of skepticism, especially from those privy to Leo's morning bravado, began to dissolve. Instead, the room hummed quietly with a sense of shared purpose. People straightened, eyes no longer flickering to side conversations but locking attentively on Riley's balanced, assured face. After a moment, she invited questions and offered to meet individuals over the coming week for one-on-one discussions. Her intention was clear: she valued transparency and collaboration. No hierarchies would shield her from the realities faced by her team. Leo watched from the doorway, his expression guarded. The early arrogance had given way to a reluctant respect, though pride still restrained his acceptance. He was an experienced man, well aware that the office's social dynamic could pivot quickly, and this was one such shift. In a quiet aside outside the room, Linda Lang, the HR manager, spoke with a few other senior staff members. "You see, this is exactly what leadership should look like: strength without showiness, competence without arrogance. Riley will change the tone around here." Back inside, Riley took a few moments to absorb the calm order she had helped establish. Moving beyond the initial judgments related to her appearance, she had articulated her values clearly, setting a tone others couldn't ignore. The explanation for her simple dress was not a defense but rather a statement about her priorities. Practicality, service, and genuine connection mattered more than polished appearances. She hoped that message would resonate deeply. She concluded the meeting by reinforcing key points. "Let's focus on delivering results that make a difference, on building an environment where every voice counts, and on renewing our commitment to excellence, not just in what we do, but in how we work together." With soft nods and a lingering sense of respect, the team began to file out, the energy in the room subtly transformed from cautious curiosity into cautious optimism. The message was clear: leadership here would not be judged by first impressions alone. As she gathered her notes and prepared to leave, Riley caught sight of Leo standing just outside, eyes flickering with a mixture of begrudging acknowledgement and whispered calculation. Their gazes met briefly. In that moment, unspoken understanding passed between them. His role and influence would soon need to be re-evaluated under new standards. Throughout the rest of the day, Riley's presence was marked by quiet efficiency. She moved through the office with purpose, engaging with teams and individuals, listening intently. The title of vice president now carried a weight that reverberated beyond formality, manifested in the respect she earned not through appearance, but through action and clear leadership. What had begun as a simple introduction evolved into a foundation upon which she would build trust and inspire performance. The office, once tinted by skepticism, now glimpsed a future led by someone whose approach was unpretentious yet undeniably powerful. In the subtle rhythms of that day's work, Riley's values, humility, fairness, and strength, took root, signaling a change that would redefine the culture and ambitions of the company going forward. The office buzzed with a renewed energy as Riley Bennett settled firmly into her role, the weight of leadership now balanced by the respect she commanded. In the aftermath of the morning's revelation, the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. Where skepticism and quiet judgment had once lingered, a new tone emerged, one of engagement, earnestness, and professional focus. Employees who had been unsure of how to approach the new vice president now greeted her with genuine warmth. Yet Leo remained a figure caught between two worlds. His customary confidence now edged by an unfamiliar tightness. The private meeting he was summoned to by Linda Lang, the HR manager, was brief but unambiguous. "Leo," Linda said firmly, "your behavior this morning was unacceptable. You publicly underestimated and mocked the vice president based on appearances rather than facts. That is not aligned with our company's values." Leo, sitting stiffly in the modest HR office, forced a strained smile, masking his discomfort. He had always believed the office lead role gave him informal authority, a kind of social license to judge and direct others. But now, with Riley's leadership commencing, the rules had changed. As a consequence, Linda continued, "You will be relieved of your office lead duties temporarily and enrolled in our leadership development program. I expect you to approach this with an open mind. This is not a punishment but an opportunity." Leo's jaw tightened. The words stung, but deep down, he recognized the necessity. His smirks and casual condescension would no longer carry him through this office. "Understood," he finally said, voice low. News of Leo's reassignment moved quickly through the corridors. There was little open discussion, but the undertones were clear. Behavior toward leadership that fostered division or disrespect was no longer tolerated. The people who had laughed previously at his jokes now looked at him with reserved neutrality, sensing the shift in balance. Meanwhile, Riley continued her rounds through the office, engaging colleagues in brief but meaningful conversations. She stopped at desks, asking pertinent questions and listening attentively to concerns. Her demeanor was steady, neither distant nor overly familiar, and the results were palpable. Conversations previously marked by cautious politeness grew warmer. Staff began sharing ideas more openly, and a collective focus on collaboration arose organically. Riley's presence had become an anchor. In the midst of this evolving dynamic, a final interaction unfolded between Riley and Leo. It occurred late in the afternoon beside the sleek coffee station near the main entrance, where employees often gathered for informal chats. Leo stood stiffly, hands in pockets, waiting. Riley approached calmly, carrying a clipboard but halting as she noticed him. She offered a measured nod. "Leo." He returned the gesture, voice quieter than usual. "Ms. Bennett." There was no hostility, no lingering resentment, only the quiet acknowledgement of changed circumstances. "I trust you'll take the leadership program seriously," Riley said, her tone even but firm. "This office needs all of us to raise standards, including you." Leo nodded, the weight of her words settling in. "I will." The exchange was brief but significant, a turning point. Neither offered false warmth nor dismissive coldness. Instead, there was a mutual recognition: past attitudes would no longer shape the future. As Riley turned away, her posture relaxed, her stride purposeful and confident. The office, once fragmented by unspoken doubts and whispered judgments, moved toward a new chapter. Walking through the bright, bustling floor, she glanced briefly at her reflection in the glass walls. No trace of the rumpled blouse or damp hair from the morning remained in her poised demeanor. Yet she carried within her the same humble purpose, the same clear vision that had guided her steps all day. Her presence was no longer questioned or underestimated. She was fully in command, leading not just with title but with undeniable authority earned through action and integrity. The company's future now rested firmly in her hands, and as the sun shifted higher in the sky outside, Riley Bennett embraced the challenge ahead, unshaken and fully in control.